I tried everything I could to get Leanne the most beautiful girl in college. I eventually married her. But even after 3 years of marriage, our relationship never truly blossomed. She claimed she had a severe cleanliness obsession called misophobia and was undergoing psychological treatment for it. She would constantly ask for time. Once I kissed her on the lips, but her reaction was so intense that she ran straight to the bathroom to vomit. Although she explained that it was just a physical reaction and had nothing to do with me, I was still devastated. And in the 4th year of our marriage, her company sent her abroad, and we were separated for a whole year. On our 5th wedding anniversary, I decided to go abroad to surprise her. But when I got off the flight and arrived at her company's restaurant, the scene I witnessed at the restaurant next door changed my world. I saw Lian booking a hotel room for another man. Standing outside the glass wall of the restaurant, I stared at her holding a bouquet of roses. A man in a suit stood next to her. They were laughing and talking. I had never seen Liu Ruyan smile so gently. It was as if all his coldness and distance had suddenly melted away. The love in his eyes as he spoke to me was something I had never seen for myself. In that moment, something inside me broke. After a long while, Ruyan's gaze fell on me. The smile on her face slowly disappeared. She whispered something to the man and walked towards me with an umbrella. "Why are you here?" Her voice held a hint of displeasure, not joy at my arrival. I forced a smile and handed her the bouquet. "Happy 5th anniversary, Ruyan." But before she could even pick up the flowers, I heard the man's voice in the distance. "Ruyan, the meeting is about to start." Ruyan looked at me and said calmly, "Come inside with me first," and then turned back. I stood there for a moment, then followed her. On the way, I learned that the man's name was Sha Chuha, and that he was very close to Ruyan. I tried several times to talk to Ruyan alone, but Sean would always interrupt. Finally, when we reached the door of the meeting room, he looked at me and suddenly said something in Spanish. Ruyan replied in Spanish. Both of them thought I didn't understand their language. But little did they know that 5 years ago, I had secretly learned Spanish just to get closer to Ruyan. What they said meant something. "Is this the man you married?" "Yes, but that's not important anymore." Hearing those words completely broke my heart. Before entering the meeting room, Ruyan said coldly, "I have a meeting. You wait here." He wasn't behaving like a husband, but like a stranger. I bent down and stared at the wilting roses in my hands. They were exactly like our relationship. On one hand, love had lasted for 5 years, but in the end, there was nothing but emptiness. I wiped the raindrops from my face and threw the bouquet in the trash. I was tempted to return to China right away, but I thought I should at least ask him the truth. I didn't realize this wait would take 2 full hours. After the meeting, I went with Liu Ruyan to his home in England. It was a single apartment provided by the Research Institute. The room was impeccably clean, and everything was neatly arranged. Liu Ruyan brought me a pair of new slippers. Just as I was about to put them on, I noticed another pair of men's slippers next to the shoe. They were exactly the same design as the women's slippers Liu Ruyan was wearing. "I've ordered new toiletries online for you," she said. "Go rest for a while." Then she asked, "You haven't eaten yet, right? I'll make you some noodles." I nodded. She always spoke to me with such politeness and distance, and even her politeness felt like a wall between us. The long flight had exhausted me. I settled on the living room sofa. Then my eyes fell on her phone lying on the coffee table. The screen suddenly lit up. The phone was right next to me, so I could clearly see that the sender's name was Jia Chan. In 5 years of marriage, I had never checked her phone. But then something happened. I picked up the phone. The message read, "If you had decided to come to me earlier, the person sitting next to you today might have been me." Seeing these words, the last remaining hope in my heart vanished. Now I was completely convinced that Shou Chun was the man Liu Ruyan had once loved and hated. After a few seconds, the screen turned off. But then my eyes fell on her wallpaper. That Shou Chun, there was a picture of her wearing a graduation gown. My wife's phone wallpaper had been a picture of her ex-boyfriend for 5 years. At that moment, I fully understood for the first time how small my status was in Liu Ruyan's world. A soft sound of utensils came from the kitchen. I put the phone back and acted as if I hadn't seen anything. Then I walked towards the kitchen. Liu Ruyan didn't even look at me. She simply offered me chopsticks. "If you don't like the taste, don't force it." I took the chopsticks and asked softly, "Can you tell me the truth about the relationship between you and Shou Chun?" Liu Ruyan replied calmly, "Shou Chun is my ex-boyfriend. We were together for 8 years. We were almost married. But later our dreams and goals diverged. He wanted to pursue a career abroad, and I decided to stay in China. His voice sounded normal, but I could clearly feel the slight tremor in it. I bowed my head and asked again, eating noodles. That was it. There was a moment of silence. But this time, too, she didn't respond. It was late at night. We were both lying on the same bed, but as always, on different sides when Lurian suddenly reached out and grabbed mine. Despite sleeping in the same bed while in China, she always avoided my touch. This was the first time she had ever held my hand. I thought maybe now she would explain everything that had happened that day. But she said, "Yes, Monet, I've made it. Decision. I'm going to settle here." My hands went cold. When she had come to England a year earlier, she had said it was just a short business trip. Then it stretched from 1 week to the next. I had stayed in China taking care of her parents, always hoping that one day she would return. But now in a very quiet voice she was telling me that she wanted to stay here forever. I knew she wasn't waiting for me, and at that moment I had no strength left to stop her. I said softly, "Okay, it just rains a lot here. Take care of yourself." When I gave in so easily, I felt a sense of relief. She was probably surprised. She held my hand tighter. "Thank you." Oh, Monet didn't reply. She just closed her eyes, because I had already made my final decision. I was going back alone, and the truth was, I never told her that I hated the rain and Osa. As the night deepened, Lurian's phone vibrated repeatedly. I knew these messages were from Xiao Chun. After a while, Liu Ruyan slowly got out of bed and said to me in a low voice, Xiao Chun saw his ex-wife cheating on him on a rainy and stormy night. That's why he's so afraid of thunder and lightning now. I have to go to him. I'll be back soon. Perhaps she wanted to comfort me, but I didn't respond and pretended to be asleep. Although no one knew better than me that this time I wasn't going to wait for her. After she left, I got out of bed. I picked up the phone at 4 o'clock and booked the first flight back to China for 4 o'clock in the morning. Then I left. I opened the pack and took out 5 beautifully packaged gift boxes. Each box had a special date written on it. I arranged them neatly on the table. Then I recorded a voice message in Spanish for Liu Ru. I sent it as soon as the recording was complete. 10 hours later, the plane landed at Beijing Capital International Airport. I slowly opened my eyes. There was no fatigue from the long flight, only a strange, languid peace in my eyes. Outside the window, I could see Beijing in March. The other sky looked exactly like the endless Edinburgh rain that presses on my chest like a heavy stone, making it difficult to breathe. I had turned off my phone before boarding the plane at London Heathrow Airport. Now its black screen reflected my own reflection. Deep dark circles under my eyes and an unkempt beard growing on my chin. 13 years. 13 years. 8 years of obsessively pursuing someone. 5 years of marriage in name only. My entire youth. My entire passion. Everything was spent on Leon. And finally, I had nothing. I didn't even come, leaving only emptiness and brokenness. While unloading my luggage, a passenger accidentally bumped into me. He panicked and apologized repeatedly. I simply nodded my head, my voice so hoarse as if it had been rubbed against sand. After much effort, only 2 words came out of my mouth. "It's okay." I got up and opened the overhead luggage compartment. Inside were just a few simple clothes and nothing else. When I left for England, my suitcase was packed. It contained Liu Ruhian's 5th wedding anniversary gift, German-made surgical instruments she had long coveted, her favorite Chinese sweets. There were also local specialty items for her parents. But when I returned, all those things were gone. Like the red roses I wanted to give her. Those roses, drenched and withered in the rain, were finally thrown into the trash. And with them, my last hope for 13 years of love was buried forever in that rainy city. Like my own family, I had lost the person who had given me 13 years of love. I had loved Lou Ryan for years. As I exited the airport terminal, a crowd of people surged through me. Some held placards bearing the names of their loved ones. Others were scurrying to find someone in the crowd. Friends reunited after years were smiling and embracing. Children were laughing happily, and relatives were inquiring about each other's well-being. All around was a vibrant atmosphere filled with noise and excitement. But all this hustle and bustle had nothing to do with me. I walked with heavy steps like a lost soul, lost in the world, slowly fading into the crowd. Even my reflection seemed filled with loneliness and desolation. Reaching a secluded corner, I finally turned on my phone. The next moment, countless missed calls and messages flooded my phone. The phone vibrated continuously, making my palms tingle. They were all from Lou Ryan. In just a few hours between my boarding the plane and my landing, he had called 37 times and sent nearly 100 messages. My fingers paused for a moment on the screen, Sheila. But I didn't even unlock the call. Without hesitation and without any emotional turmoil, I blacklisted the number I knew by heart. After that, messages from her kept popping up in my WeChat window. Initially she asked, "Where have you been? I've seen the gift box. What does that mean?" Then came the panicked messages. "Amo, reply to my message. Don't go. We can sit and talk." And finally a politeness I'd never seen from her before. I made a mistake. Please come back." I was wrong. I was wrong. These 3 words stung my eyes. Suddenly a faint smile appeared on my lips. A smile that mixed sarcasm, stubbornness, and deep sorrow. I was wrong. Where was Liu Ruin wrong? She simply never loved me. She was never wrong. In fact, she had been comfortably enjoying my 13 years of unwavering devotion, while showering all her love, affection, and tenderness on another man. I opened the settings, her acquaintances. I found the profile, photo, and clicked delete contact. As soon as the confirmation pop-up appeared, I immediately pressed confirm. A 13-year-old obsession was completely destroyed by my own hands in that very moment. As I left the terminal, I realized that Beijing in March was still holding on to the chill of a late winter. Winter. The cold wind stung like a knife against my face. I hailed a taxi and gave her the address of the house where Liu Rian and I had lived together for the past 5 years. I had designed that house myself. During that time, I spent countless nights making adjustments to the plans, making attention to every detail, to give her the perfect home. Every corner of the house was designed to her liking and habits. She had a strong obsession with cleanliness, therefore the highest quality, germ-free, and environmentally friendly building materials were used throughout the house. Even the cracks and corners were specially designed to prevent dust from accumulating. She had been undergoing surgery for several years and also had back problems. Therefore the kitchen, the counter, and bathroom wash basin were custom-made to fit her height. The large glass windows in the living room faced the hospital where she worked, simply because she had once casually mentioned that she loved watching the sunset. But in the past 5 years, she had spent less than a year in this house altogether. She was always working overtime at the hospital, always busy with some surgery or another, always attending some academic conference. Even when she came home, her demeanor maintained a polite yet cold distance. It felt as if there was an invisible glass wall between us. She was extremely reluctant to even offer a simple hug or touch. I arrived at the apartment downstairs. I paid the taxi fare, got off, and looked at that familiar building. The 17th floor, the same window that had once glowed with light, waiting for my return. The same place I considered my final resting place. Today, it was completely dark. Suddenly, everything felt strange. I took the elevator up, opened the door with my fingerprint, and clicked. The door swung open. The house was exactly as I had left it. Impeccably clean. Everything neatly arranged. Every corner reflected Liu Ryan's habits. Her white sneakers and high heels were neatly arranged in the shoe rack in the entryway, while my slippers were tucked away in a corner as if they were just a mismatched and unnecessary decoration in this house. I changed my shoes and went into the living room, tossed my bag on the sofa, and sank into the soft cushions, closing my eyes. The fatigue of the long flight, 13 years of grievances, resentments, a broken heart. At that moment, everything crashed upon me like a flood after a dam broke. I felt like crying, but my eyes were dry and filled with pain. Not a single tear escaped. Perhaps this is the deepest pain of a broken heart. I don't know how long I sat there in the darkness. The neon lights of the city had flickered on outside the window, and then slowly my mind began to calm down. Then suddenly the doorbell rang. Once again. The second time, the voice was hesitant and shy. I froze, but didn't move. Who could have come looking for me so late at night? I couldn't imagine. The doorbell rang a few more times. Then a soft female voice rang from outside the door. Her voice was as light as a feather, but it struck me straight in the heart. "Emo, are you home?" The voice was both familiar and strange. I remained silent for a few seconds. Then I got up, walked to the door, and opened it. Sun was standing outside. She was wearing a light beige cashmere coat and holding a thermos. Her long black hair was slightly disheveled by the wind, and her fair cheeks were slightly reddened by the cold. Her eyes lit up for a moment when she saw me, but the next moment they faded again. The pain hidden in those eyes couldn't be hidden from anyone. "Jingyan, why are you here?" I asked. My voice was still heavy, with a hint of uneasiness tinged in it. Suching had known me for 24 years. When we both met, we were little children running and playing in the same courtyard. Ever since then, she'd always followed me around, calling me Baya Amuk. She'd seen me transform from a cheerful, carefree boy into the broken, exhausted man I am today. Seeing her, her heart felt like it was being pricked with needles. It hurt so much that even breathing became difficult. "I've been trying to call you for days, but I can't get through," she said softly. "Ank just told me you went to England." Her voice was soft, as if she was afraid she might hurt me further. I thought you'd return today. That's why I came here every day, waiting for you. She lifted the thermos in her hand. I've made millet porridge. Your stomach has always been weak. You probably haven't eaten properly on such a long flight. A faint smile appeared on her face. It was as gentle as a spring breeze. I stared at her, and suddenly I felt a crack open in that long, frozen, barren field of my heart. A faint warmth slowly seeped in through that crack. For the past 5 years, I had lived entirely for Liu Ruyan. For her sake, I hid my identity, suppressed my radiance, and distanced myself from almost all my old friends and relationships. But she remained in my knowledge. On every holiday, she would send me greetings. Sometimes she would even send something I liked or a small gift, and I would often simply reply with a formality. Sometimes I wouldn't even reply to her messages. Yet she never left. I stepped aside and let her in. Su Qingyan walked straight into the dining room in a familiar manner. She opened the thermos, scooped hot millet porridge into a bowl, and brought it with her. She placed some light dishes in front of me. Eat quickly, it's hot. It will satisfy your stomach. I sat down at the table. The steam rising from the bowl suddenly brought back memories of that night in the apartment in England. Liu Ruyan had also made noodles for me that night. They were bitter and cold, whereas the simple dish was placed before me. A bowl of porridge. It was causing a slight burning sensation in my nose, and enough to make my eyes moist. I picked up a spoon and slowly began to eat. The hot porridge sank into my stomach, spreading warmth throughout my body. The chill in my body slowly disappeared, and the thick layer of ice on my heart began to melt. Su Qing sat across from me, watching me silently. She didn't ask what happened in England. She didn't even try to find out how my relationship with Liu Ruyan ended. She simply supported me silently, because she knew me so well. I may have appeared calm and gentle on the outside, but deep inside I was a complete genius. There was no point in asking the things I didn't want to say. At this moment I didn't need questions or comforting words, just someone's quiet companionship. After finishing a bowl of porridge, I put down the spoon, raised my head, and softly said, "Thank you, Qingyan." Su Qingyan smiled, and as she packed up the dishes said, "Why be so formal with me? We've grown up together since childhood." She paused for a moment, but finally couldn't stop herself. Her voice was soft, but every word came from the heart. "Amo, don't torture yourself anymore for those who don't deserve your love." My fingers paused slightly. After a moment of silence, I slowly nodded. My voice was quiet, but it held a firmness I'd never felt before. I know 13 years is enough. I don't want to waste any more time. Su Qing looked at me in disbelief. She'd been waiting for these words for 5 whole years. "Yes," I replied softly. The dead silence in my eyes finally began to lift, replaced by a faint glimmer of hope. I had given up on her. I had truly decided to move on. Just then my phone rang. 2 words flashed on the screen. "Papa." My fingers paused for a moment. Then I answered. "Hello, Papa." Shen Jimshan's steady, commanding voice came from the other end. His voice held more emotion, but I could sense the worry and pain hidden within her. "Amo, you're back in China. I just arrived. Come to the old house. Your mother and I are here." Shen Jingzhan's tone was such that it left no room for argument. "There are some important things I need to talk to you about." I remained silent for a few seconds, then said, "Okay," and hung up. Meanwhile, Su Qingyan had cleared the table. She looked at me and said, "Uncle and Auntie must be very upset. You should go and see them. I'll pack up a little and leave. Don't worry. There's no need to pack anything. Just leave it like this." I got up, picked up my coat, and said, "I'll drop you off downstairs. There's no need." Su Qingyan pushed me toward the door, smiling. "I'll go myself. You better hurry up. Don't keep Auntie waiting any longer." Then she paused and said, "And if anything happens, call me anytime. You still remember my number, right?" She deliberately emphasized the last sentence. She was afraid that all these years my world had revolved solely around Liu, and that I'd even forgotten her number. I looked into her eyes. A warmth slowly spread within my heart. I smiled and nodded. "I remember. Don't worry." After Su Qingyan left, I stood at the entrance. I looked at that house for the last time. The house that had housed my 5-year marriage and 13 years of passion. But now, there was no attachment left in my heart. No regrets. No attachment. Only relief, complete and true. I turned, closed the door, and pressed the elevator button. This time, I didn't look back. Just as I would never again look back at the past, which had been called Liu. The Shan family mansion was located in a quiet and luxurious villa zone in the western hills of Beijing. This place was considered one of the residences of Beijing's most prestigious and influential families, and I drove in through the main entrance. The butler was already waiting for me at the door. He respectfully opened the car door. "Young Master Yu, I'm back. The master and mistress are waiting for you in the living room." I nodded. I got out of the car and went inside the villa. The living room was filled with warm yellow light. Shen Jimshan was sitting on the sofa, reading a financial newspaper. And as soon as I entered, my mother, Lin Wan, immediately stood up. Her eyes turned red in an instant. "Amo, you're finally back." She quickly walked over to me and touched my face. The pain was evident in her eyes. "Look at you. You've only been gone for a few days. But how did you get so thin? Did someone treat you badly?" Seeing the worry in my mother's eyes, my nose burned slightly. I reached out and hugged her. "Mom, I'm fine. I'm sorry for worrying you and Dad." "You're my son." Lin Wan patted my back. Her voice was choked. "How can I not worry seeing you like this? Back then you were so adamant that you had to marry Ruyan. You hid your true identity just to win her love. I couldn't stop you. But you've endured so much in these 5 years. Do you think your father and I didn't know anything?" My body went slightly stiff. I always thought I hid everything so well. But perhaps nothing can be hidden from parents' eyes. I fell in love with Liu Ruyan at first sight. That day I was driving somewhere. Suddenly I saw a crowd of people gathered on the street. Curious, I made my way through the crowd, and then I saw her. Tsiayo Yame, wearing a white doctor's coat. She was kneeling on the ground. She was giving CPR to an injured person, unmindful of the blood and broken glass surrounding her. There was unwavering determination in her eyes, and a glow radiated from her whole personality. I was completely captivated by her in that very moment. Later, I searched everywhere for her information. Then I learned that she was one of the youngest surgeons at City Hospital. Her medical skills were exceptional, and her demeanor was cool and detached. One day, I overheard her talking to a colleague. She was saying that she didn't like spoiled boys from wealthy families. According to her, they only used their family power to swindle and had no real talent. She also said that she would never marry into a wealthy family. She simply wanted to live a simple life with a simple, honest man. Because of this one sentence, I concealed my identity as the Shen family's sole heir. To the world, I presented myself as just an ordinary architectural designer with a normal salary, a normal apartment, and a normal car, worth about 200,000 yuan. I transformed myself into exactly the kind of person Liu Ruyan wanted. A simple, honest, and ordinary man. I spent 8 years trying to melt her ice-cold feelings. Even though she always kept her distance from me. Even though she was so obsessed with cleanliness that she avoided even holding hands. Still, I never gave up. Everyone told me that Liu Ruyan didn't care about me. But I didn't listen to anyone. I always believed that if I was dedicated enough, her heart would melt one day. For 5 years of our marriage, I held her in high esteem. She had a passion for cleanliness, so I did all the household chores. Every day the house was sparkling clean before she returned. Hot water was always ready. I cooked her favorite meals, even thoroughly disinfecting the utensils beforehand. When her parents fell ill and were hospitalized, I served them like a son, caring for them day and night to me. When she was treated unfairly at the hospital, or when her colleagues harassed her, I quietly used the Shen family's influence and connections to clear the way for her, so she could focus on her medical research and career without worry. But she always believed that all this was due to her fate and her own abilities. For her, I gave up the opportunity to study abroad. I gave up the opportunity to take over the family business. I gave up the life that should have been mine, and became the man who stood behind her for 13 years without any identity. But I finally understood that a heart that has no love for you can never be proud. The marriage I held most precious to her was just a convenience, a war, a compromise, a hollow shell, a mask to show the world. "Sit down, let's talk." Shen Jingshan put down the newspaper. His face was as calm as ever, but today it lacked its previous sternness. I left my mother and sat on the sofa. "I know everything that happened in England," Shen Jingshan said calmly, but there was a command in his voice that couldn't be ignored. "Maya, I know everything about that Shan too, and what Liu Ryan did too." I looked at him in surprise. "You thought you could go to England hiding your identity, and I wouldn't know anything?" He let out a soft, cold laugh. "You're my son, Shen Jingshan's son. How can I not keep an eye on your every move? My people were around you when you were standing in front of the Edinburgh Institute. If you hadn't stopped me, I would have sent people long ago." Hearing this, my throat choked. I couldn't speak. I always thought I was the only one who knew about my suffering and humiliation over the past 5 years. But I didn't know that my parents had been witnessing it all and felt the pain with me every time. They never spoke to me about it just to avoid hurting my self-respect. Dad, my voice choked. I'm sorry, I let you down. Disappointed, Shen Zishan looked at me. This time, his tone was softer. You didn't let us down. You were just very young, and love blinded you. Every man makes mistakes in life. The important thing is to turn back in time. After a pause, he continued, at that time you insisted on marrying that same girl. You insisted on living a normal life. Your mother and I could have stopped you, but we didn't. Because we wanted you to see the true nature of people by hitting the wall yourself. Now you've hit the wall. You've been injured. It's time to wake up. I nodded slowly. I'm awake. Seeing the determination in my eyes, Shen Jinshan nodded with satisfaction. A glint of approval flashed in his eyes. Then he slid a file in front of me. Now that you're awake, let's move on. This is information about the Shen Group's medical and healthcare sector. Our group has been working in the medical field for the past 20 years. We control the entire industry chain, including drug research, medical equipment manufacturing, private hospitals, and the healthcare industry. See for yourself the scale. I opened the file, and my eyes widened. I only knew that the Shen family had become wealthy through real estate and finance, but I had no idea their influence in the medical field was so vast. Nearly half of the country's top private hospitals were owned by the Shen Group. Even the city hospital where Lian worked was controlled by one of the Shen family's biggest investors, and that was just the beginning. Yuangyo Pharmaceuticals, a subsidiary of the Shen Group, was one of China's leading pharmaceutical research companies. Its research centers were spread all over the world. Shanqi and Chua Pharmaceuticals were no match for it. Shen Jingshan's voice gradually grew colder. What was Liu Ryan most proud of? His medical skills, his academic reputation, and his surgical achievements. And Shou-chan was proud of his reputation in the family business and the medical world. He looked me in the eye and said, quote, they think you're not worthy of them, so I'll show them how insignificant the thing they're most proud of is in the Shen family's eyes. Ispo. In front of the Shen family, they're just ants, crushable with a single finger. My fingers trembled slightly. I considered revenge, but even if a 13-year relationship is completely over, some memories and feelings still linger. That's why there was still a little softness in my heart. But Dad's words were like a key that unlocked a locked door of my heart. Why should I endure this injustice? Why should I watch them both live? What do you want to do? I raised my head and asked Dad. It's very simple. Shan Jingshan leaned back on the sofa. His eyes were as sharp as a hawk. First, ruin Xiaochuan's academic reputation. Then, destroy his family business. Turn him from a shining star in the medical world into someone everyone looks down on. And as for Lian, he's so proud of himself, isn't he? He thinks his medical skills are superior. So I'll show him how much my son contributed to where he is today. If it weren't for the Shen family's support, he would be nothing. Lin Wan, sitting nearby, also spoke, quote, when he got the job at City Hospital. When he was made associate chief physician. When he received so many national-level research projects. Amo was behind it all. You were the one who quietly asked us to help him. Now it's time to take back what we gave. I remained silent because it was all true. When Liu Ryan was being promoted to associate chief physician, his competitors were constantly plotting against him. Then I secretly called Dad and asked for his help. That's when all the obstacles were removed. His research projects had been rejected several times. Then, using the Shen family's resources, I secured her support from one of the best research teams in the country. I even had her application documents redrafted. Only then did she receive funding for the project. But I never told her any of this. I was afraid that if she found out the truth, she would think I was showing off my status. She would become even less interested in me and distance herself from me. But now, looking back, it seems like all my sacrifices and silent contributions were nothing in her eyes. As if it were all natural. As if they were worthless. After a long silence, Dad, I quietly said, I want to handle this all myself. The lost, a dull expression in my eyes had vanished. In its place was a bright glow. I want to take charge of the Shen Group's medical division. A glint of surprise flashed in Shen Jishan's eyes. Then he burst out laughing. Okay, very good. This is what I've been waiting to hear for the past 5 years. All the Shen family's wealth is basically for you. If you want to handle this, your father will fully support you. Lin Wan's eyes also lit up with joy. Come on, whatever you want to do. Mother is always with you. Finally, she could see her confident and shining son again. There's one more thing. I picked up the file on the table. My fingers stopped at the words written on it. Divorce agreement. The entire process of my divorce with Lion. Please let the lawyers handle it. I don't want to have any connection with him anymore. Shen Jimshan nodded. Don't worry. We've already hired the best divorce lawyer team in the country. Liu Ryan won't get a single penny from the estate. Everything he spent in the past 5 years was the Shen family's money. We won't ask him for that money back. That's a huge concession for him. That night, I stayed at the old house. Lying in my childhood room, I watched the moonlight stream in through the window. And after a long time, I slept peacefully. There was no lion, no passion, no restlessness, just a peace I'd never felt before. Finally, I no longer had to chase after Liu Ryan. I could become Shenmo again, the heir to the Shen family, the person who should shine in his own light. Meanwhile, in Edinburgh, England, Liu Ryan sat alone in an empty apartment. All night, just before dawn, she slowly got up from the sofa and stood near the table. Her eye fell on the 5 gift boxes. Now she truly realized that Shen was gone, and perhaps this time forever. The realization fell on her chest like a heavy stone. It became difficult to even breathe. For 13 years, no matter how cold, distant, or harsh she had been with him, Shen had always been there for her. Whenever she worked late into the night, no matter how late it got, there was always a light waiting for her in the house, and a hot meal ready for her. When she returned home exhausted after a long surgery, she often fell asleep as soon as she arrived. Then Shen would quietly take off her shoes, massage her stiff shoulders and neck. Even his breathing would slow down so as not to disturb her sleep. When her periods hurt, he would have molasses and ginger tea ready. He would also keep a hot water bottle nearby and sit beside her all night, caring for her. He would attend to her every need, big or small. He would treat her like a princess. But Liu Ryan always took it all for granted. She had become so consumed by his presence that she never considered the possibility that he might leave one day. She always believed that no matter how he treated her, Shen would never leave her. He was like that safe haven behind her, always there, always within her reach. But now that safe haven had vanished. Shen was gone. There was no fight, no screaming, no accusation. He had simply disappeared from her world. And that was the most terrifying thing. Liu Ryan felt a strange emptiness in her heart. With a terrible panic, she picked up the phone again and tried to call Shenmo. But the same cold message appeared. The phone is off. The red exclamation mark on WeChat silently filled her eyes. She tried to find his friend's contacts. She thought about asking someone about Shenmo. Then she realized. In the past 5 years, she had never been a part of Shenmo's world. She didn't even have any of his friends' numbers. She knew very little about him. All she knew was that he was an architect. But what university did he go to? Who were his friends? What was his family like? She knew none of this because she never tried to find out, and Shenmo never forced it. He didn't even remember her birthday. Her gaze fell on a written gift box. She had already opened it. Now in her hand she held the same cold metal cufflinks, their chills stinging her palm. She remembered how bright her eyes had been when Shenmo had given her this gift on their first wedding anniversary. But what was she doing at that moment? She was chatting with Xiao Chan. Xiao Chan had told her that his research abroad had run into some difficulties. She was lost in that worry. She didn't even look at the gift box properly. Just coldly said, "It's all a pretense. It doesn't matter." She didn't even remember the expression on Shenmo's face at that time. Now thinking back, he must have been so disappointed, so broken, as if possessed by some invisible force. She picked up the second gift box and slowly opened it. Inside was a hand-woven red thread. Inside was a small jade protection amulet. Liu Ryan's eyes widened. In a blink of an eye, her eyes turned red. She remembered it was their 2nd year of marriage. She had gone to a medical camp in a remote mountainous area. There was a sudden landslide. Her car had overturned down the hillside. Although she had only suffered minor injuries, when the news reached Shen he was almost mad. He drove all night and waited at the foot of the mountain for 2 days and 2 nights until she emerged. Until she emerged. After that, he tied this same red thread around her wrist and said with a smile, "I prayed for your safety at the temple. I prayed for you at the temple." But at the time, Liu Ryan had thought it uncomfortable to undergo surgery while wearing it, and frankly, He even found it a bit unsightly. Yeah. 2 days later, he took it off and threw it in a drawer. He never wore it again. He even got angry at Shenmo, calling her superstitious and accusing her of interfering with his work. He had thought the thread would have been thrown away long ago, but he never imagined that Shenmo had kept it safe for so many years, had brought it with him so carefully all the way to England and placed it in this gift box. Liu Ryan held the red thread. Her fingers trembled violently. The thread was as good as new. There wasn't a single sign of wear and tear on it. This was enough to prove how carefully Shenmo had made her comfortable. But she never even bothered to glance at it. Her heart felt as if an invisible hand had gripped her tightly. A wave of suffocation and pain spread through her body. Just then, the doorbell rang. Liu Ruyan suddenly regained consciousness. She wiped away tears from the corners of her eyes. Then she got up and opened the door. There stood Shou Chan, breakfast in his hand, a gentle smile on his face as always. Ruyan, I brought you breakfast. You didn't reply to my message last night. I was a little worried. Before, whenever she saw Shou Chan smiling like that, her heart would fill with warmth. But today, she felt unreasonably irritated. Come in, he said, stepping aside. His voice lacked the warmth it had always had before. It was cold. Shou Chan came in and immediately noticed the 2 open gift boxes on the table. Also the red thread in Liu Ruyan's hand. She frowned slightly. What is this? Shen left it behind. Liu Ruyan silently shook her head. Then without another word put the red thread back in the gift box. Ruyan, don't worry so much. Shou Chen placed the breakfast on the table and came over, extending his hand to embrace her. Shen is just a little upset. Everything will be fine in a couple of days. He's been chasing you for so many years. He won't give up just like that. But Liu Ruyan unconsciously took a step back. Shan's hand froze mid-air. A look of surprise appeared in her eyes. In all these years of knowing her, even though Liu Ruyan was obsessed with cleanliness, he had never avoided her touch like this. Ruyan, what's wrong? She asked in a confused tone. Nothing. Liu Ruyan nodded and went to sit on the sofa. I'm just a little tired. The sight of Shaoken suddenly brought back memories of that rainy night. That night Xiao Chuan had told her that he was afraid of thunder and lightning. That's why he wanted to stay with her. She had thought Shenmas would be asleep. But he was awake, lying quietly in bed, listening to her excuses to spend time with another man. How much despair must have filled his heart at that moment. Then she remembered the scene outside the research institute, where she had bent down to take off Xiao Chuan's soaked shoes and socks. Her voice was so gentle, it could melt anyone's heart. And at that moment, there stood she. In his hands he held the roses he had brought for her. They were completely soaked. Like an outsider, he silently watched as the tenderness and love he had always desired was being received by someone else. He even told her in Spanish that Shenmo was just a use. Whether he was worthy or not didn't matter. Only now did Lian understand how deeply he had hurt Shenmo. Ruyan Shan sat down next to him. The organizers have sent me an invitation. I've told them I'll take you with me. We'll perform on stage together. This will be a great opportunity for your international medical career. Lian looked at him, but her heart remained up. Academic reputation, international recognition, respect in the medical world. These were the most important things to her. For all of these, she had ignored Shenmo's feelings. She had sacrificed her marriage and accepted Shenmo's sacrifice without any guilt. She wanted to pursue her so-called ideals, but now she had no interest in any of these things. I won't go. She slowly shook her head. Was Shachan stunned? This was an opportunity many people yearned for. I'm not interested, Liu Ryan said flatly. I want to go back to China. I have to find Shenmo. I have to apologize to him. I have to explain everything and bring him back. I can't lose him. Shou Chan's face instantly changed. Back to China. Back to Shenmo, Brian. Don't forget that you chose to stay in England and be with me. What's the point of returning to him now? You two have been married for 5 years. I have to go back and clear everything up. Liu Ryan's voice was tinged with irritation. I have to clear everything up? Shan's voice rose. What more could he say? He left without another word. It was clear he didn't want to continue this marriage. Going after him and pleading now is just belittling himself. When did you become so humble? Yu Yan looked at her, and suddenly Shan felt very strange. Because for all these years, he had always stood on a pedestal in front of Shenmo. He was always the one who was pampered and valued. He had never learned to be humble. But Shen, after Mo left, Liu Ryan understood for the first time what it was like to be a babe, and how small it felt to be in front of someone. "This is my personal matter," she said coldly. "It's none of your business. Now go back. I want to be alone." Sean looked at her cold face. Anger was boiling inside her, but finally she controlled herself. He stood up, adjusted his suit, and said in a soft voice, "Okay, I won't force you. But think carefully. Don't make a decision you'll regret later." With that, he left. As soon as the door closed, Liu Ryan couldn't control herself anymore. She collapsed on the sofa, tears welling up in her eyes. With trembling hands, she picked up the gift box marked Day 3. She slowly opened it. Inside was a photo album. As she opened it, her hand froze. The entire album was filled with photos of her concentrated face during surgery, the photo of her falling asleep on the sofa exhausted from her triumphant smile on the award stage, the rice cake sticking to her lips while eating, lying curled up in bed in period pain, staring lostly out the window from their first meeting to their 5th year of marriage. 13 years of memories, almost every important moment of her life. Shenmo had silently captured them on camera, then carefully preserved them in this album. Beneath each photo was a small note, the date, and her feelings that day. September 15, 2013, today I saw her for the first time at the scene of a car accident. She was busy saving the lives of the injured. Her eyes shone like stars. Perhaps that was the moment my heart beat for her. March 2015. Today she smiled at me for the first time. Though it was just a courtesy smile, I was still happy all night. October 7, 2018. Today she accepted my proposal. I married the girl I love. I will take care of her for the rest of my life. 2019, our first wedding anniversary. I bought her a cuff link. She didn't like it. No matter. I'll search further little by little. One day, I'll definitely find something she'll like. 2020. She went to a medical camp. There was a landslide. I was very scared. As long as she's safe, nothing else matters. 2021. I prepared a gift for her birthday, but she was working overtime and didn't return home. The cake got ruined. No problem. We'll celebrate again next year. 2022, our 5th wedding anniversary. She went to England on a business trip. I missed her so much. I want to go to England and surprise her. And then, the last note of the album, Edinburgh. 2023, a rainy night. She doesn't love me. Even after 13 years, I haven't been able to win her heart. My heart is tired. Leanne kept turning each page. Tears kept falling. The ink blurred, and for the first time she realized how deeply Shenmo had loved her for 13 years. She had never realized that Shenmo had loved her so deeply for 13 years. In places like this, the one she never got to see, the marriage she always considered hollow, the relationship she considered only feeling, it was all just her own misunderstanding. Shenmo never expressed all his love in words. He hid it in small gestures for 13 years. But Liu Ryan never tried to lean in and see those feelings. Now she finally understood. She hadn't just lost the man who pursued her for 13 years. She had lost the person in whose eyes she alone lived, who considered her his entire world, and who was perhaps the last person in the world to love her unconditionally. The news of Shen taking charge of the Shen Group's medical and healthcare division sent shockwaves throughout Beijing's medical community. It even became a national topic of discussion. Everyone knew that the Shen Group's sole heir had been missing for 5 years, living a life like an ordinary person. But now, he had suddenly returned, and as soon as he arrived, he had taken charge of one of the group's most important departments. It was clear he knew he was about to do something big. On his very first day at the company, Shenmo called a meeting of all the senior executives. He sat at the top of the conference room in a specially tailored, expensive suit. His eyes were sharp, his thoughts clear. He listened attentively to department reports, and the questions he asked were so precise that no one believed this was the same man who had been away from the family business for 5 years. Initially, many executives thought the young boss had come just to fulfill a formality. But by the end of the meeting, everyone's opinion had changed. They realized that Chairman Shan's son had never been a spoiled rich boy. He had simply fallen in love. And now that he had awakened, his true potential was beginning to emerge. After the meeting, Shenmo called the chief risk officer and the director of the legal department into his office. I need complete information about Shan and the Chan Pharmaceutical Group behind him. He sat behind his desk, lightly tapping the table with his fingers. His voice was calm, but there was a pressure in it that couldn't be ignored. He could have gone, especially all their dark deeds, academic fraud, business irregularities, and financial problems. and financial problems. I need everything. 3 days will be enough. Sir, the chief risk officer asked immediately then. Without waiting, said, actually, Chairman Shen has already given the order. We've already started gathering information. Almost everything is ready. I'll bring it right away. Shamo simply nodded. His face was emotionless. He was no saint. He wasn't about to let go of the humiliation and pain Shen and Lian had inflicted on him. He wanted to show them the true meaning of power and the heavy price of challenging some people. Soon, a thick stack of documents was placed on his desk. Shamo began flipping through each page. Slowly, a cold smile formed on his lips. The heir, Tusha Chachan Pharmaceuticals, had secured his prestigious job as a researcher at the Edinburgh Medical Research Institute, largely due to his family's influence. On the outside, he presented himself as a medical genius. But the truth was something else. His papers, published in prestigious international journals, were garbled. Many research papers contained serious flaws. The results of many experiments were unrepeatable. Some studies even plagiarized other people's work. The situation in the business sector was even worse. Clinical trial data for several of Chua Pharmaceuticals' key drugs had been manipulated. Marketing approvals had been obtained by bribing regulatory officials. The company engaged in tax evasion, falsified financial records, inflated revenue figures, and profited from the stock market. Some of the drugs had even caused serious side effects in patients, but these cases were hushed up with bribes. Each of these documents was evidence that could completely destroy Shan's reputation and land him in prison. Shen Mo closed the file with a wry smile. Looking at the legal director, he said, quote, the first step is to send the concrete evidence of the fraud in his research papers to the editorial offices of major medical journals as well as to the Ethics Committee of the Edinburgh Medical Institute, and simultaneously report it to the International Medical Forum and the International Medical Forum. Expose him anonymously on academic platforms. His voice was ice cold. I want this so-called medical genius's reputation to be shattered overnight, and the whole world to know him as an academic fraud. The legal director immediately stood up. Yes, Mr. Shen, I'll make arrangements right now. Step 2. She opened the next document. Hand over all evidence of tax evasion and falsified clinical data to the relevant departments in China and Britain. Also, activate our European partners. They should cut off the supply chain and end all business cooperation. There was no mercy left in his eyes because this time, Shen wasn't just a wounded lover. He was the heir to the Shen family. Shen's voice was still calm, but his every word held the power of thunder. I want Chua Pharmaceuticals to go completely bankrupt within a month and have its assets auctioned off. Step 3. Find out which officials Chua Pharmaceuticals bribed. What illegal means did they use to enter the European market? The evidence should be handed over to the relevant departments. Shimo's eyes turned ice cold. I wish Sha Shouhan and the entire corpse family standing behind him never had the chance to stand together again. After making all the arrangements, the legal director and risk control officer quickly left. Only Shenmo was left alone in the office. He got up and stood in front of the huge floor-to-ceiling glass window. He could see the busy city streets below. His deep gaze was lost somewhere in the distance, lost in the endless lines of cars. Just then his phone rang. A name flashed on the screen. Sunya and Amo, he said. Work was finished. Suchingan's soft voice came from the other end of the phone. I'm downstairs at your company. I've brought you lunchy. If you're busy, I'll come up. A smile involuntarily appeared on Shimo's lips. The coldness in his eyes vanished instantly. No, I'll come down myself. After hanging up, he headed straight for the elevator. Suchingan was standing in the company lobby. She was wearing a neat white suit, a lunchbox in her hand. Her long hair was tied up. A gentle and intelligent aura emanated from her entire being. As soon as she saw Shenmo, she smiled and waved. Shenmo quickly rushed over and took the lunchbox from her hand. How did you suddenly end up here? Suchingan smiled. Auntie told me it was your first day at the company. I knew you'd be so busy working that you'd forget to eat. Coincidentally, I had work nearby, so I brought you home-cooked food. All your childhood favorites. They both took the elevator up. Reaching the CEO's office, Sunyan opened the boxes one by one. 4 dishes and the soup. Everything was Shenmo's favorite. The aroma filled the room. Taste it, let's see if my cooking went wrong. Mo picked up a chopstick and put a bite in his mouth. The familiar taste melted in his mouth, warming his heart. It's so delicious, just like when he was a child. Suchingan's eyes lit up with a smile. If it's good, eat more. You've gotten quite thin these past few days. If you eat properly, if you don't eat, Auntie will be worried again. He paused for a moment and asked softly, how's everything going at the company? If you need any help, let me know. Dad said that Superwar will always stand by you. Super was one of Beijing's oldest and most prestigious financial families, and a close friend of the Shen family for years. Their main business was investment. Their financial strength was immense. As for Sun, he was a top investment expert just returned from Wall Street. No one doubted his ability. Shen Mo looked at him. His heart swelled with gratitude. Thank you, Kinyan. Everything is going well right now. If needed, I won't hesitate to help you at all. Why so much formality? Suchingen smiled and placed a bowl of soup in front of him. Finish your meal first. It'll get cold. Watching Shimo take another bite, Suchigan felt both satisfaction and pain. He could finally see the old, confident Shen Mo back, but he also knew that the wound in his heart hadn't completely healed. Some wounds take time. He couldn't heal his wounds. He could have, but he could have stood by him. He could have helped him gradually fill them. At that very moment, a huge storm had erupted in Edinburgh, England. First, the academic fraud scandal broke. The Shen family's team made public all the solid evidence against Shou Chan on fake data, falsified research results, and many other serious irregularities. Internationally renowned medical journals immediately launched an investigation. As soon as the evidence was confirmed, all research papers were withdrawn one after another. Shou Chan was permanently blacklisted. It was decided not to accept any of his research papers in the future. Immediately, the Ethics Committee of the Edinburgh Medical Research Institute also issued a notice. All his research activities were suspended and a special investigation committee was formed. Within just one night, the man, once hailed as a medical genius, became the biggest fraud in the academic world. Medical institutions worldwide distanced themselves from him. Old collaborative projects were cancelled. Criticism began everywhere. Shou Chan was completely panicked. He constantly called professors and heads of institutes. He kept calling, but no one answered his calls. Some even blocked him. His reputation, built over years of hard work, was destroyed overnight. But this was just the beginning. He hadn't even recovered from the shock of the academic scandal when another blow struck. The UK tax department and drug regulatory agencies launched a simultaneous crackdown. The British branch of Chua Pharmaceuticals was suddenly raided. All the company's financial records were confiscated. Drug samples were taken. All clinical trial data was seized. Then, one after another, new scandals surfaced. Falsified data, tax evasion, commercial bribery, financial fraud. Everything became public. That very day, Chua Pharmaceuticals shares plummeted. The share price plummeted by nearly 70%. The market was shaken, and the company's future appeared bleak. Countless investors panicked and began selling their shares. Partner companies announced the end of collaborations one after another. Banks also began demanding repayments and early repayments. In just one night, Chan Pharmaceuticals' cash flow completely collapsed. Even its headquarters in China was left unscathed. The Drug Regulatory Authority, the Tax Department, and the Securities and Exchange Commission launched simultaneous investigations. The company's factories were sealed. Medicines were removed from the market. Bank accounts were frozen. Shachua's father also suffered a devastating blow. In just one night, his hair turned gray, and he had to be hospitalized urgently. Within a week, the once illustrious Chan Pharmaceuticals was on the verge of bankruptcy. The Shawan family, once a prominent social figure, was now a shattered family mired in debt. Shawan was utterly devastated. He locked himself in his apartment, bricking everything in his room like a mad animal. He couldn't understand who he had offended and why such a terrible disaster had suddenly befallen him. Then his lawyer called. His voice was filled with despair. Mr. Shah, we found out that the one taking action against us is the Shen Group of China. The Shen Group orchestrated all the revelations. We can't compete with them. The Shen Group's strength is 100 times greater than ours. We have no chance of retaliating. Shen was stunned. His eyes widened in disbelief. Which Shen Group? When did I offend them? The lawyer replied in a trembling voice. The Shen family in Beijing started out in real estate and finance, one of the country's largest business conglomerates. Their heir, Shenmo, Shen's pupils shrank. His blood seemed to freeze in an instant. He suddenly remembered that rainy night in Edinburgh. The same man who stood holding a bouquet of drenched roses, looking humble and ordinary. The one he had mocked in Spanish, the one he had said was unworthy of Liu Ryan. That man was actually the heir to the Shen Group. Shan's strength was drained from his legs. He fell to the ground with a thud. His face went as white as a rag. He finally understood who he had challenged. The thing he cared about most. She was proud. Her talent, her family, her business, her reputation, all of them were nothing in the eyes of the Shen family. They were mere ants that could be crushed at any moment. Just then the door opened. Lian stood at the door. Her face paled at the sight of the broken things scattered around the room, and the scoundrel Xiaochua. She now knew everything. Xiaochua's academic fraud, the collapse of Shao Pharmaceuticals, the destruction of the Shao family, and behind it all, Shen Motha. She had finally discovered the true identity of the man she'd spent 5 years married to. The man she'd always thought was a mere architect, a man she didn't even consider worthy of her. But the truth was, he was the sole heir to one of the country's most powerful business families. She remembered how she and Xiaoquan had mocked him in Spanish, how she'd always been cold and contemptuous towards her, how she'd mistaken Shaman's most selfless love for her and lavished all her affection on Xiaoquan. She felt as if someone had repeatedly hit her in the face. "You slapped me." Her heart was filled with shame and remorse. Seeing him, Xiaochuan ran towards her like a drowning man, clutching startled straw. He staggered to her and held her hand tightly. "Help me. Go and beg Shenmo, tell him to let me go. You're his wife. He'll definitely listen to you. Please talk to him for me." Lian looked at him, at the man she once idolized, but now, Xiaohuan standing before her looked utterly pitiful, and only one feeling arose in her heart. Deep irony. This was the white moonlight she had always yearned for, the man she had hurt Shenmo to be with. But at the slightest trouble, he became so cowardly and helpless. Liu Rian jerked her hand away, her eyes cold. She stared straight at Xiaochuan and said, "Xiaochuan, don't you understand yet? Why did Shimo take action against you? You did his own. You ruined 13 years of love. You ruined his 5-year marriage. Do you really think he'll listen to me? So what should we do now? What should we do?" Shan was completely devastated. He sat on the ground, covering his face with his hands, and sobbed like a child. "I'm ruined. Have mercy on me." Li Ryan looked at him, and in that instant the last remaining hope in her heart vanished. She turned and left the apartment without a backward glance. She was going back to China. After finishing all the things she'd planned to do in England, to find Shen Mo, to apologize to him, to atone for her sins, and to tell him she now understood her mistake, and ask him for another chance. And after finishing all the things in England, Liu Ryan bought a ticket for the first flight back to China. Before leaving, she opened the remaining 2 gift boxes. A box marked Day 4. Inside was a men's ring, the same wedding ring Shen Mo had made for her when they married. In their 5 years of marriage, Shan had never taken it off her hand. Even though Liu Ruyan never wore his wedding ring, even though he rarely told people he was married, Shen Mo always wore it like it was a priceless treasure. And now he had left it there. Alisha misleader. Liu Ruyan picked it up with trembling hands. Inscribed on the inside was, "Love you for a lifetime," and the initials of their names. Tears welled up again. One by one they fell on the ring. Then he opened the last box. Day 5. This was the final surprise Shen Mo had promised. With trembling hands he opened the box. There were no gifts inside. Only 2 documents. The first was a divorce agreement. It bore Shen Mo's clear and strong signature. The document stated that all property after marriage would be transferred to Li Ruyan's name, and that Shen Mo was relinquishing all rights to the division of the property. Why? Until the very last moment, he was still thinking about her. The second document was a complete description of the Shen Group and Shen Mo's identity. The sole heir to the Shen family was Yuan, Zhou Pharmaceuticals, the president of Shen Group, the chairman of the company, the future owner of one of the country's largest business conglomerates. Every word felt like a hammer on Lion's heart, shattering her years-long pride. Now she realized what she had lost. She thought she had married an ordinary man, but he possessed wealth and status she could never have achieved in a lifetime. And more importantly, she now realized that the man behind her job at the city hospital, her rise to associate chief physician, her research projects, every major success in her career. Motha, the man she had always considered ordinary and insignificant. In reality, all his achievements were insignificant to her. She always thought Shen Mo was trying to reach her level, but the truth was the opposite. From start to finish, she herself was trying to climb up. Liu Rian sat down on the ground, clutching the divorce papers to her chest, and burst into tears. 13 years of pursuit, 5 years of marriage. She had pushed away the person she loved most with her own hands. Now she understood what regret felt like. It was early morning when the plane landed at Beijing's capital airport. Lian stepped out, dragging her suitcase. The city was the same, but everything felt unfamiliar. She went straight to the house where she and Shenmo had spent 5 years together. She opened the door. The house was empty. All of Shenwo's clothes, shoes, design drawings were gone. As if he had never lived there. Only the house was still spotlessly clean. Everything was in its place, as if the hard work of 5 years was still embedded in the walls. She went into the bedroom. She opened the bedside drawer. Inside lay her own wedding ring. The same ring she had never worn since their wedding, and had kept next to it. Shenmo's ring lay beside the 2 rings, as if mocking her entire marriage. Liu Ruyan picked up the ring with trembling hands and put it on her finger. The ring fit perfectly, but her heart felt more empty than ever. She pulled out her phone and called Shenmo. Because she changed the number, the call went through this time. The call stayed on hold for a long time. Then someone picked up. Shenmo's familiar voice came from the other end. But there was no warmth in it anymore. Only coldness, distance, and a slight impatience. Who? Hearing the voice, Liu Ruyan burst into tears. Her voice trembled. It's me, Amo. There was silence for a few seconds. Then came Shenmo's flat voice. What's the matter? Ow. I'm back in China. I'm in our home. Please come back. We'll talk together. Shenmo's voice was calm as water. There's nothing left to talk about. You must have received the divorce papers. If there's no problem, sign them. The lawyer will take care of the rest. No, Liu Yanggan cried. Amo, I don't want a divorce. I've realized my mistake. I really have. Please forgive me. We can start over. Please. Shenmo laughed softly. There was only sarcasm in that smile. Dr. Liu, do you really think this is possible? Liu Ruyan began to cry uncontrollably. I know I made a lot of mistakes. I shouldn't have treated you so coldly. I shouldn't have gotten involved with Sean. I shouldn't have hurt you. Amo, just give me one more chance. I promise I'll change this time. I'll treat you well. We'll live a good life. There's no need for that. Shenmu interrupted her in a cold voice. In 13 years, I've given you countless chances. You were the one who rejected them. It's too late now. No, it's not too late yet. Liu Ruyan spoke quickly, a last trace of hope in her voice. I've cut off all ties with Sean. The person I love is you. It's always been you. I was just too foolish before. I didn't understand my own heart clearly. Shenmo called her by her full name. The irritation in his voice was clear. Stop making excuses. You don't love me. You love the status I can give you. The identity of the Shen family's heir, the resources, and the status. If I were still that ordinary architect, would you come back to me? Liu Ruyan's words choked in her throat. She couldn't utter a single word. I've already had my lawyer send you the divorce papers. Sign them and we'll part ways peacefully. Shenmo's tone left no room for any further discussion. Don't call me again. I don't. With that, she immediately hung up. When Liu Ruyan called again, the line was already busy. Liu Ruyan fell to the ground, mobile in hand, and wept uncontrollably. She understood that Shenmo really didn't want her, but she couldn't accept it. She couldn't lose him like that. She found out the Shen Group's address, and the next morning went downstairs to wait under the company building. She was wearing a white dress and delicate makeup. She wanted to look like the person who had made Shen fall in love with her at first sight. Now, she stood there from morning until afternoon, watching people come and go. Finally, she saw that familiar Bendale car stop in front of the company. The car door opened, and Shenmo stepped out. He was wearing a black, custom-made suit. His body was straight and confident, and his presence was extremely impressive, and his eyes were sharp and sharp and sharp. He seemed completely different from the quiet and reserved man Liu Ruyan had known before. Suchingan was walking with her. Suchingan was wearing a long champagne dress. Her hand was on Shenmo's arm, and a gentle smile was on their face. They were walking together. A perfect pair, a handsome man and a beautiful woman. The sight of this tore Liu Ruyan's heart apart. The pain was so intense that she couldn't breathe. She ran forward and blocked Shenmo's path. No, Shenmo stopped, his brow furrowed as he saw her. There was only coldness and impatience in her eyes. Zhu Qing'an also stopped, but she didn't let go of Shenmo's sister. She just calmly stared at Lian. There was no hostility in her eyes, only a slight distance and indifference. Come on, can you give me 5 minutes? Just 5 minutes. I want to talk to you. Liu Ruyan's eyes filled with tears. Her demeanor had become extremely humble and pitiful. I have nothing to say to you, Shenmo, Shenmo said coldly. Talking about divorce with your lawyer. I won't get a divorce. Liu Ruoyan looked at him, tears welling up. Come on, 13 years of relationship, 5 years of marriage. Can you really just leave it like that? I know you still have feelings for me, don't you? I still have feelings for you. Shen Mo laughed mockingly. Luyan, don't you think too highly of yourself? The day I saw you taking off another man's shoes and socks in the Edinburgh rain, that day all my feelings for you died. And the day you started making excuses to go to another man in the middle of the night that day, my passion for you also died, might. He stared at her. Every word of hers was a knife straight into his heart. You haven't come back to me today because you love me. You've come back because your honor is ruined. You've lost your support, so now you want to use me as a backup plan. It's a pity. I don't accept trash here anymore. Liu Ruoyan's face went white in an instant. Oh yes, I forgot to tell you one thing. Shen's voice was still as cold as ice. The Shen family is the biggest investor in the city hospital you work at, your medical license, and your department. We've submitted the relevant documents for re-examination of your research project. You know very well what you've done to reach where you are today. From today on, you won't be able to work in the country's medical field. Liu Ruoyan's body trembled. She stumbled back a step and nearly fell. She finally understood how ruthless Shen Mo's revenge had been. He had not only ruined Shan but also taken away the most precious thing in her life. Come on, you can't do this to me. Li Yan cried in despair. That's my life's work. Shen Mo looked at her coldly. You ruined my life's greatest passion. And I ruined yours, your greatest achievement. Isn't this a fair calculation? There was no mercy in his eyes. With that, he didn't look at her again. He put his arm around Sachinkin's waist and walked straight into the company building. From start to finish, he didn't look back once. Li Yan stood there, staring at her back. Finally, unable to control herself, she collapsed to the ground, sobbing. Everyone around stared at her. Amidst the whispers and taunts, she had been utterly defeated. She was left humiliated like a clown. Sometime later, the Shen Group's annual medical summit was held at the Beijing International Convention Center. Top medical experts from around the world and almost all of China's leading medical companies attended. It was an event of unprecedented scale. I stood calmly on the main stage, dressed in a custom-tailored suit, delivering my speech. In the years since taking charge of the Shen Medical Division, I had implemented several major reforms. Under my leadership, Yuju Pharmaceutical developed several world-class innovative drugs. Many gaps in the country's medical technology were filled. A world-class medical research and development center was established. Deep collaborative relationships were also established with top universities like Harvard and Cambridge. Our private hospitals had also become the standard for high-quality medical services in China. In just 1 year, I had tripled the market value of the Shen Medical Division. I had become the undisputed leader of the country's medical industry. As soon as my speech ended, the entire hall erupted in applause. Everyone's eyes were on me. Admiration and respect clearly visible in their eyes. After the speech ended, I calmed down. Suchingen immediately came to me and handed me a glass of warm water. A gentle smile was in her eyes. You gave a wonderful speech. I took the glass and smiled, stroking her hair. The coldness and sharpness in her eyes immediately melted into tenderness. You've been busy with me all morning. You're not tired. Suchingen smiled and nodded. Then she reached out and smoothed my shirt. All the arrangements for tonight's celebration banquet have been made. Michael. I nodded and took her hand. Our fingers entwined. For the past year, Suchin had always been there for me. When I was busy at work, she would sit quietly beside me. She would not only help me with my work, but also take care of it. Sometimes, when I would feel sad remembering the past, she would silently console me and show me the right path. Gradually, I learned to trust her completely. Her tenderness, her support, and her understanding began to heal the wounds in my heart, and she taught me to believe in love again. 3 months ago, I proposed to Sachin in the same courtyard, where we grew up together. There was no grand ceremony, just a ring I designed myself and a question. Qingyan, will you spend the rest of your life with me? Sunyan's eyes welled with tears. She nodded and said, Yes, I'm ready. Our wedding was scheduled for the following month. Just then, there was a sudden commotion at the entrance to the conference venue. I looked up and frowned, slightly and heavily. Standing at the door was Liu Ruoyan. She looked utterly devastated compared to a year ago. She was no longer the proud and confident surgeon she had been. Her hair was dry and lifeless. Her eyes were red. She was wearing faded white clothes. At this high-level conference, she looked completely dejected. Her life had been completely ruined in the past year. The city hospital had fired her. Her medical license was revoked. She could no longer perform surgeries. No hospital in the country would dare hire her. She had become an outcast in the medical world. When her parents learned of her actions, they were so enraged that they severed all ties with her. They refused to even see her again. Meanwhile, Xiao Chen was finally convicted of commercial fraud and tax evasion. He was sentenced to 15 years in prison for tax evasion. The Xiao family went bankrupt and drowned in debt. There was no hope of recovery. Lu Yan had lost everything. She now lived in an old rented room and worked odd jobs to make ends meet. Every day she lived in regret. She watched my news. She watched me rise step by step. Seeing me and Sunyan happy and in love tore her heart to pieces. She tried countless times to meet me, but each time she couldn't even see me. Even at this conference today, she somehow managed to sneak in. She just wanted to see me one more time. She just wanted to apologize to me one more time. The security guards stopped her from entering. She started sobbing wildly and screamed in my direction. "Come in, let me in. I have something to tell you." The entire hall turned to look at her. Whispers erupted everywhere. My face went cold. I waved at the security guards, signaling them to let her go. Liu Ruyan immediately broke free from their grasp and ran toward me, staggering me. Tears welled up in Liu Ruyan's eyes as she looked at me. The man standing before her was radiant, full of success and confidence. He was the very happiness she had once held within her grasp, and which she had rejected with her own hands. "Leo, Lucha," Lu Yan's voice choked. "I know I made a mistake. A very big mistake. I've regretted it every day for the past year. I think of you every day. Can you give me another chance? Even if I'm just allowed to stay with you, I'm willing to do anything." I looked at her. My eyes were calm. There was no emotion in them. No wave. No pity. "Ruyan, do you still remember?" I said slowly. "On my birthday, the 3rd year of our marriage, I cooked a full meal with my own hands and waited all night for you. But you came home early in the morning and said you'd forgotten. I asked you the same thing that day. Could you give me a little attention? And you said I had plenty of free time and was just being dramatic." Liu Ruyan was stunned. How long had she forgotten that incident? In the 4th year of our marriage, when your mother had a heart attack and was hospitalized. I stayed with her for 7 days and 7 nights. I took care of her every need. But you were busy on a video conference with Shawan at that time. You just came to the hospital for a short while and then left. My voice was still calm, but every word pierced her heart. I asked you that time, what am I to you? And you said you were my husband. So it's your duty to fulfill these responsibilities. I've carried these responsibilities for 5 years. For 13 years, I gave you my whole heart. But what have you done? I looked at him. A slight twinge of sadness flashed in my eye. You trampled my truth underfoot. You always took my love for granted. And now that you've lost everything, you remember how wonderful I was. No, it's not too late. Amu, it's really not too late. Liu Ruyan began to cry and shake her head. She reached out to hold my hand, but I instinctively took a step back and distanced myself from her. At that very moment, Suchin stepped forward and stood in front of her. Her voice was quiet, but it carried an authority that couldn't be ignored. "Miss Liu Aum is going to marry me soon. Please have some self-respect and stop interfering in her life." Yeah. Liu Ruyan looked at Suchin. I glanced at the diamond ring glistening on her finger. Then I saw the joy and confidence in her eyes. Her heart felt as if it had been cut with a sharp knife. She had finally understood. She had completely lost me. The man she had loved for 13 years. The very man she had pushed away. And now, he was never coming back. I said in a cold and firm voice, Royan, I'm telling you one last time, it's over between us." It was all over that day. That rainy night in Edinburgh, when I turned around and threw the roses you gave me in the trash. Don't ever come in front of me again and try to interfere in my life with my fiancé, or I won't be so polite next time. With that, I didn't look at her again. I took Suchingen's hand and turned and walked away. Liu Ruyan stood there watching our backs go. We were walking together, a perfect pair, a handsome man and a beautiful woman. Finally, she couldn't help herself. She fell to the ground and burst into tears. The people around her started pointing fingers and talking. Everyone's eyes were filled with ridicule and contempt. Finally, she had to pay the price for her actions. She could only live the rest of her life in endless regret, alone and filled with remorse. 3 months later, Suchin and I were married in Beijing. The wedding was grand and extremely romantic. And business partners from around the world attended. At the wedding ceremony, I stood before the priest holding Suchin's hand. I looked into her eyes and said each word clearly. Xindian, thank you for coming. For the rest of my life, I will love you and protect you. I will never leave you, in life or death. I will always be with you. Suchin Han's eyes filled with tears. She smiled and said, come. I, too, will always be with you, in happiness and sorrow in every situation. I love you.